The day the world changed, the 30th of November 2022. That was the day that OpenAI dropped the free preview of ChatGPT. It received over 1 million signups within the first 5 days, the fastest technology to ever reach 1 million users. To tell this story and to understand this company, we have to go back to a party in 2015.
Unfortunately, we weren't at this party either.
Hero or sidekick?
Welcome to Sidekick, the podcast where we uncover the hidden superpowers that drive the biggest and fastest growing companies and successful names in the business world. I'm Bryce, and today with my co-host Ren, we are your trusty sidekicks.
And today we are looking at a company that has captured headlines, imagination, and dollars around the world. That is OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT.
We're going to dig into the superpowers of OpenAI and have a broader discussion around what's going on with all things generative AI and close out with a few investment opportunities in the space.
Yeah, so let's start with OpenAI and unpacking its superpowers. And to tell this story and to understand this company, we have to go back to a party in 2015.
Unfortunately, we weren't at this party either, regrettably. The party was Elon Musk. It was his 44th birthday back in 2015, July, and it ran for 3 whopping days. That's what you do when you're a billionaire, I guess.
I mean, you can have your wedding was a 3-day party.
No,
So.
true. 2 days. Now, artificial intelligence had pierced the public consciousness only a few years before, when it was used to identify, you name it, cats on YouTube.
Yeah, and the AI at that time could only identify cats on YouTube with a 16% accuracy.
Yeah, not great.
So if you think about where we were in 2015 and where we are today, the world has fundamentally changed in a decade.
Yes.
But we're not there yet.
No.
So at this party, Elon Musk's 44th birthday was Larry Page. At that time, he was still the CEO of Google. And as you do during a 3-day bender, he and Elon sat down by the fire and started debating AI.
Sounds very familiar to you and me, Ren.
Now, for context, these two had been friends for more than a decade. Elon would often crash on Larry's couch after late-night gaming sessions. But as they chatted about AI at this party, the tone got pretty heated. They were discussing the AI's potential effect on the world. Larry, CEO of Google, a year after buying DeepMind, which was at that time the leading AI research institution in the world, Larry thought AI would elevate humanity.
Yeah.
Elon thought it would destroy it. This conversation got heated. There was a crowd gathering to watch these two billionaires debate. Eventually, Larry called Elon a speciest, which is a person who favors humans over digital forms of life.
Would a digitist be the opposite?
I guess so. Later, Elon has said in an interview with the New York Times that insult from Larry Page was the last straw. A few weeks later, Elon, Sam Altman, and several other tech and AI researchers met for a private dinner at the Rosewood Hotel in Menlo Park, California. And at that dinner, OpenAI was born.
And it was born with a mission to develop, quote, safe and beneficial artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
Yeah.
Established originally as a not-for-profit.
We will get to that. Yeah.
And as you said, Ren, backed by some of the richest people in the world. So Elon Musk came on board, Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel, and Jessica Livingston, who is the wife of Paul Graham, all came on 2015. I think they collectively put in about $1 billion to get this thing off the ground.
So you can see this really as a response to the big tech investment in AI at the time. Meta, Microsoft, Google, they were really driving AI investment. And this was, I guess, a union of concerned scientists and billionaires who were worried about like the privatized nature of AI. And so they built it as a not-for-profit, and they built it really to create safe and beneficial artificial intelligence for the world and to like make their work public and available for the world. That was the original mission. Now, this leads to where we think OpenAI's first superpower emerges, and that was their ability to attract the best talent.
Yeah, talent galore, and by gosh, do they pay for talent. So Microsoft's Peter Lee, who is the head of Microsoft Research, has stated that the cost of a top AI researcher exceeds the cost of a top NFL quarterback prospect. Now, that might not be true in total dollar terms because, Ren, I think you've got some figures there to tell us exactly how much they get paid from the NFL point of view, but they are paid huge dollars.
Yeah, no, I've actually got stats to tell us how much AI researchers are paid.
Well, we know how much NFLs are paid.
Well, I can tell you, top NFL quarterback prospect from last year, Caleb Williams, went to the Chicago Bears on a $9.5 million contract per year.
Okay.
$38 million over 4 years. That's not quite how much these AI researchers are being paid. But we've pulled some information on AI pay grades. And so this, I guess, sets the context in terms of what OpenAI were facing when trying to hire the best researchers. So according to AIPaygrade.es, the source we're using, Facebook pay the most. All of these tech companies have different levels, like L6, E6, blah, blah, blah. It's like how senior you are. Okay. So Facebook E6 research scientist, overall compensation, $1.175 million a year.
Cash? Or
no,
just
between
all
base
income?
Salary, equity, target bonus, other bonuses.
Solid.
Google, L6 research scientist, $1.06 million a year. Then Facebook, 1.45 for the next level down. Google, the next level down, $995,000. Facebook and Google dominate. Amazon is in there at about $650,000. And interestingly, Microsoft is a bit further down, or perhaps their data isn't available as I scroll down. But yeah, you're talking $1 million plus.
Serious cash.
Top AI researchers.
Yeah, I love the terminology researchers as well. So OpenAI, we know they were set up as not-for-profit originally, but they did pay corporate level salaries. So, it goes a long way to attracting talent. But I think as you demonstrated there, Ren, that they weren't paying research salaries as much as some of the big tech companies, Facebook, Google.
Yeah, they just weren't able to.
Yeah.
And yet, they were able to get some of the best AI researchers of the generation. Why?
Elon Musk.
The mission, to create safe and beneficial artificial general intelligence for the world, to do it in a not-for-profit structure, was something that attracted a lot of researchers that could get a lot more. Just one example to illustrate the point, OpenAI co-founder Wojciech Zaremba stated that he turned down, quote, borderline crazy offers that were about 2 or 3 times his market value to join OpenAI instead.
Must be nice.
So I think if we go back to what we're trying to do here, which is unpack the superpowers of some of the great companies of our generation, the first one for OpenAI is that they were able to attract talent they couldn't afford because of the mission that they were on.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have known what these big tech companies were saying that made it feel like their AI was so dangerous and so not aligned with the ethos of these guys. Do you know what I mean?
Well, even if it wasn't dangerous, it's just like
profit driven.
Yeah, should Google have a monopoly over this transformational technology that they just use to their own ends?
Yes.
Like, I can understand why you're attracted to the mission of doing it for the world.
Yes, I can too. But
I don't know. I reckon you would take the salary.
You might be right. Anyway, so let's keep moving with the story of OpenAI, and we want to call this outgunned, outmatched, because Ren, despite all of that talent that they attracted, the early days of OpenAI certainly saw them outgunned.
Yeah. So, for example, in 2017, OpenAI spent $7.9 million on cloud computing. Their biggest competitor, one of their biggest competitors at the time, Google's DeepMind, spent $442 million.
Huge.
So they were literally outgunned and outmatched. And they were falling behind. In 2018, Elon Musk resigned from the board. He claimed it was a potential future conflict of interest because Tesla might invest in AI or might try and develop their own AI. However, it was largely believed at the time, Sam Altman has said since, the reason that Elon left was he believed OpenAI had fallen behind other players like Google, and Elon then tried to take over OpenAI himself and run it himself. The OpenAI board blocked Elon and he left. So just think about it at the time. You know, they got all these smart people together. They started this company. They had a bit of money to go. 3 years later, they were outgunned, outmatched, and they were falling behind. You know, that was the situation they were in.
And you've got a co-founder trying to take it over.
Yeah. In 2019, OpenAI did something to slightly rectify the situation. They partnered with Microsoft and got $1 billion of investment from Microsoft.
They did, but they had to change the way they operate to get it.
Yeah.
So what they had to do was change from a not-for-profit organization to what was called a capped profit model, essentially capping the amount of profit they can make. I think they said up to 100 times.
Yeah.
The reason they had to do this was, as you said, Ren, if you want to get huge amounts of investment, you are likely going to be getting it from people who want a return on that money. And so if you're investing in a not-for-profit, you're not actually technically making a return because it's all put back into the business, or there is just no profit to distribute. And so to get this money, they needed to show people that, hey, we're actually going to be able to reward you with the investment here.
Yeah. And that really got the company going. And then that leads to superpower number 2. Launch in a way that cuts through the noise.
Yes.
And I think OpenAI is an example of doing this better than almost anyone in recent history.
Yes.
Maybe in history, full stop.
Oh, I reckon the launch of the iPhone was pretty incredible.
Okay, well
let's not as
let's tell the story and then
world-changing.
compare, because so the day the world changed, the 30th of November 2022. That is a day that will live on in history books for generations to come. That was the day that OpenAI dropped the free preview of ChatGPT.
Yeah. Now, I don't remember if it was the 30th of November exactly. I think it was probably within the 7 days preceding, but I remember in our office. And you were like, this stuff is crazy.
Yeah.
This is nuts. Seeing the examples of what people were already doing on screenshots on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before we were signing up and trying it ourselves. And
Yeah.
it was revolutionary.
And we weren't alone. It received over 1 million signups within the first 5 days, the fastest technology to ever reach 1 million users. It received 100 million signups in the first 2 months. I'm pretty sure it was the fastest to ever reach 100 million users as well. And I think the important thing to keep in mind here is that it wasn't new technology. This ChatGPT was using GPT 3.5, which was version 3.5. Version 3 had launched in 2020. Plenty of tech companies had been playing around with this technology, OpenAI's technology, for years through the API. But there were also plenty of other AI chatbots around in the 2020s, including from the big tech players.
Yeah, like we'd all engaged with this at some point before ChatGPT was released. Yeah.
But the way it launched,
Yeah.
it looked and felt different to anything we'd seen before.
Yeah.
The way you interacted, the answers it
quality.
gave, the quality
I think
of
that
it,
was the main thing.
the speed of it.
Yeah.
It launched in a way that captured the world's attention.
Yeah.
And it cut through the noise.
Yeah.
And I think if you think about OpenAI feeling completely outgunned and outmatched and without the money that the others had, the feeling that they would have want to launch their consumer-facing application earlier would have been so strong to just get in the game. But they waited and they got it right. And when they launched, it couldn't have launched better.
Yeah, the investing lesson here, one of the experts that we've spoken to on Equity Mates Investing podcast, Michael Frazis, talks about one of his mantras around customer love. And there's probably no better indication of how successful this product was going to come by those 100 million users within 2 months of launch. Like, that is phenomenal. And I look back on that time, I'm just like, why didn't I look back on that time, I look back in Apple when it launched, and I just go, why didn't I invest in Apple? And for this, it was like NVIDIA. This is the moment NVIDIA just went nuts.
Yeah. So to go back to your Steve Jobs and Apple comparison before, the reason I think this had a better launch than Apple, this captured the world's attention straight away. The iPhone did as well, but it was really the iPhone 4 where it was like mass use. The applications and the use cases became clear.
But this is ChatGPT 3.5.
Yeah, but this was the first consumer launch, you know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Anyway, look, they both did pretty well.
Yeah, can't complain. Now, the story continues, but let's have a chat about OpenAI's valuation over the years because it's been pretty phenomenal. As we said, 2015 was when it all kicked off, and that was at $1 billion valuation. That's how much the co-founders all put in at the time. 2021, it was then valued at about $20 billion. 2023, $29 billion. But the last 12 months have been astounding. February 2024, it attracted an $80 billion valuation.
Which was about 3x what it raised at a year earlier.
Yeah.
Just to put those numbers beside each other.
Unbelievable. And then 7 months later, it's almost doubled its valuation, taking an investment at $150 billion. It's incredible growth. Incredible.
And to put that in context, there's only a couple of private companies or startups that have reached that $100 billion mark. SpaceX, ByteDance, which owns TikTok, and Stripe.
Yeah. So I think superpower number 3 here is they are capitalizing on the momentum that they've got. And whilst they might not need it, hard to know, but they are certainly taking money when it's on the table.
Yeah.
And we've seen time and time again businesses take the money, park it, and it gives them a war chest against their competitors.
Yeah. And I think there is so much of business history that is seen as predestined, but so much of it is luck. And so much of the luck relates to when you raise money. And the two best examples that come to mind here are both Amazon and PayPal raised money in the 6 months preceding the tech bubble bursting in 2000 or 2001. And they didn't have any particular foresight that the bubble was about to burst. But the fact that they raised money at the right time let them get through those lean years. And there are plenty of competitors that were trying to raise money too late or had raised money too early and then didn't have the runway to get through those lean years. Like taking money when it's on the table, raising it at the right time is so important. And, you know, how much money does OpenAI need? I mean, it would need a lot, but taking the money when it's available is such an important business lesson that we see over and over again in different market cycles.
So one of the things that they're using the money for is to pay for good talent to build a pipeline or a product suite. So let's have a look at some of the OpenAI's products. The first and probably most well-known is obviously GPT.
Yep.
It's a text-based generative AI platform. There is a free option. If you haven't checked it out, I would definitely go and do that. They have DALL-E, which is a text-to-image generator. We've had to play around with that. A lot of fun. Sora, which is a text-to-video generator.
Which is wild.
Which is, crazy. Whisper, which is speech-to-text. But it's not always been products that work well. They did have a couple of music generation platforms, one called MuseNet and the second Jukebox. I've actually never had to play with those, but obviously not a success. And then a code generation platform, Codex, which is surprising because ChatGPT does code generation.
Yeah. Codex, I think, was discontinued, but ChatGPT can write code. Yeah.
So as we tell the story, there's kind of 3 superpowers that we've pulled from that. The first one is that they were able to attract the best talent. The second is that they launched in a way that cut through the noise. And the third is that they took the money when it was on the table. And that kind of brings us to today, Ren, with the question, does OpenAI still have these powers?
Yeah, does it? So I think there's no doubt that ChatGPT changed the world, but it also changed OpenAI. As we spoke about, it went from a not-for-profit company to a capped profit model. As part of this $150 billion capital raising, it's now changing from a capped profit model to just a straight up
Shackles off.
for-profit company. Let it rip. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And that has led to some company turnover. Most of the founders have left. Now only Sam Altman really remains. There's this quite famous photo of 4 of the co-founders, like the executive co-founders, those that were working in the business, as opposed to like the Elons and stuff who were just funding it. There's a photo. It had Mira Murati, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, and Ilya Sutskever. And one by one, the 3 other co-founders have left. And so it does just lead to the question, if their first superpower was attracting the best talent, and part of that was this not-for-profit mission that they were on, is the fact that they've deviated from that mission and all of these senior researchers and co-founders are leaving, are we seeing that first superpower eroding? Are they just now another big tech company competing for talent?
The answer is yes.
There you go.
In my view, absolutely. And speaking of competing, there are plenty who are emerging. So Google is certainly catching up with their generative AI platform, Gemini. Meta have Llama. Apparently, it's killing it, 500 million users, but that's because it's built into all of the messaging applications in Meta.
Yeah, I think swapping the Instagram search bar for Instagram Meta AI has given them hundreds of millions of users. Yeah.
Amazon have invested in Anthropic. They have Claude, and then ChatGPT, though, still is the largest in terms of market share. So there are plenty of competitors. But it still seems that ChatGPT for now is the go-to.
And I think that really leads to the question that is front of mind for us as we talk about generative AI towards the end of 2024, which is, will generative AI become a commodity? Many of these large language models, like all these different AIs from the different big tech players, seem to be producing quite similar results. And if they all do converge on similar results and similar costs, the question becomes, will the owners of these models have much pricing power? Or will we be comfortable switching between the two based on the best deal? And if that is the case, then when technology becomes commoditized, the value is less in the technology and more in what is built on top of that technology or built with that technology.
Where does generative AI go from here? And are these companies just getting commoditized? And how are organizations leveraging this and building their own superpowers?
Yeah, because perhaps it's less important that the superpowers of OpenAI. Perhaps it's more important to ask how generative AI can be our own superpowers.
Yes.
Because we're seeing some pretty interesting use cases emerge, and we wanted to unpack a few for businesses and a few for consumers, like how people are personally integrating it into their lives. But I think the context to start this off is there was a Harvard Business Review report from April 2024. It looked at tens of thousands of use cases for AI and tried to understand what the most popular were emerging.
Yes.
So they found 6 major themes, the 6 biggest categories of AI use cases in business: technical assistance and troubleshooting, 23%, content creation and editing, 22%, personal and professional support, so I think that's like AI assistance, 17%, learning and education, 15%, creativity and recreation, 13%. Unsure what recreation is.
I reckon that's like, write me a training plan for a marathon. Or something along
that's
those
interesting.
lines.
Okay, yeah. And then finally, research, analysis, and decision-making, 10%.
I thought that would have been much higher.
Yeah, so I think, they're pretty broad categories, but, if any of them ring a bell for you.
Yeah, so I saw a chart recently that showed the expected growth in a lot of these categories over the next 10 years. I think it was through to 2035. And they expect that personal and professional support, I guess I would put it in, or like chatbots and personal assistance is going to be by far and away the largest use case of generative AI. And just to bring that to light, I guess, if you think about all of the support functions that businesses have at the moment, particularly that are consumer facing, there are now businesses that are creating chatbots that are specifically designed for business, written in the tone of the business, using the database of the business, and so that when you're communicating about returns or like, I want to know how to install this fridge, or I've got a new Dyson, blah blah blah, like. These companies are going to have the ability for consumers to speak with these organizations as if it was to speaking to someone on the phone.
Yeah. So to make this really practical, we've pulled out 3 interesting business use cases for specific businesses that have emerged that we think sort of illustrate how these can be used. One of them relates to what you were just saying. So let's start with Volkswagen in America. They have built a virtual assistant in the MyVW app where drivers can explore their owner's manuals and ask questions such as, how do I change a flat tire? Or what does this dashboard indicator light mean? And then they can also use the AI in their phone or in the MyVW app to point their camera at specific, things going on in their car and get information. So again, if they don't know what a particular dashboard light means, they can hold their camera to it and get that information.
Yes.
So that's a classic example of your like chatbot assistant.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you can see how that A, creates good relationship with customer, but B, saves someone having to be there on the other end. Saves cost, huge. Formula E, Ren,
yes.
The electric vehicle side of Formula One, they can now summarize a 2-hour-long race commentary into a 2-minute podcast in any language, incorporating driver data and ongoing seasonal storylines. Pretty incredible, and that goes into the content creation side of things.
Definitely. And then a final one from NASA. So that NASA are using AI to help design mission hardware. Where a human might make a couple of design iterations in a week, the commercial AI tool they're using can do 30 to 40 iterations in an hour.
Yeah.
There was this article speaking to some of these NASA engineers, and they were talking about how it's spitting back ideas that no human would come up with.
That is nuts.
Importantly, some of the ideas they said are just poorly thought through, but then others are like crazy, novel, groundbreaking. So you take the good with the bad.
Wow. Well, just to add to that, I know we wanted just to do 3 here, but there's an AI tool that is being developed and trialled by police in the UK that says it can do 81 years of detective work in 30 hours.
That is an interesting use case. Yeah.
81 years of cold cases. Look out.
Yeah. That's going to really hit our police drama TV.
Yes.
quota,
Yeah. Well, Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle, I remember he was saying that he thinks the biggest use case of AI going over the next decade is going to be in police work.
Right.
And monitoring citizens.
That's a bit more dystopian
Yes.
than detectives solving cold cases. But so look, there are some business use cases how generative AI could potentially become a superpower for certain business applications. But it's not just for businesses. We're seeing some really interesting consumer use cases emerge. Now, we've just limited it to 3 here, just in the interest of keeping it manageable, but there's so many. But let's start with translation and language. So there's plenty of examples of people traveling overseas and using AI translation tools to translate signs and guidebooks. When we were in Japan, it would have been 5 years ago now, there was a device where it would literally translate speech in real time.
Yep.
So it was pretty sophisticated even then. One example we found on Reddit, someone was traveling in Thailand and they were given a motorcycle hire contract in Thai. Rather than, using your Google Lens to hover over it and get it to translate it and then have to read it, that classic what you used to do with menus. Rather than worrying about all that, they just took the hire contract written in Thai, dumped it all into ChatGPT and said,
Am I being ripped off?
What do I need to know here?
Yeah.
And ChatGPT pulled out a whole bunch of additional charges that the renter would have been charged that they weren't told about and didn't know about.
Wow.
So, don't even worry about translation in some point. Just like do it for me and tell me what the result is.
Yeah.
Where we're at now.
Yeah, incredible. A Simon at work, as part of some episodes that we do on Equity Mates Investing podcast, uses it for financial analysis. He took a 100-page financial report from Boeing and asked how much of the revenue was from government contracts, which was down on page 81, I think, but it spat it out instantaneously. Yeah. So what would have taken tens of minutes of reading got done in
100
seconds.
pages would have been more than tens of minutes.
Yeah, I guess so. Control F, government spending.
Yeah. A third use case, a third superpower that is emerging is coding. Now, according to GitHub, developers who use GitHub Copilot's generative AI tool coded up to 55% faster than those who didn't. And when you think about coding at its base, it's logic and maths. And it's just like, it is a task that is optimized for AI to come in and assist with.
Yeah. So to tie all this together, a lot of use cases we've spoken about are businesses and individuals building on top of or leveraging the underlying AI software or generative AI platforms that these companies like OpenAI have built. So to bring it all back to the superpower side of things, like whilst, yes, the language models might be becoming a commodity, the ecosystem that they're building and the API functionality that they're giving people could be the next leg of growth and competitive advantage for them. Yeah.
So this brings our exploration of OpenAI and generative AI to a close. Now, if we just recap the superpowers that we think have got OpenAI to where they are, first of all, it's about attracting the best talent and finding a way to do it without having to, overpay for it. Secondly, launching in a way that cut through the noise. I think whatever business you're in, whatever product you're trying to launch, finding a way that captures your ideal customer's attention is so important. And then finally, taking money on the table when it's available. You don't know what's coming next for your business. And so having that buffer, that safety net, that runway is so important.
Well, that does bring us to the end of this episode of Sidekick. If you're interested to learn more on how to grow your wealth like a superhero, head to superhero.com.au/registration.
And make sure you subscribe to Sidekick wherever you're listening or watching so you never miss an episode. We've got some crackers coming up and we can't wait to bring them to you all.
Well, that's it from us, your trusty sidekicks. We'll be back uncovering more superpowers in the next episode.